Ah, greetings, B-movie aficionados.
All right. Hello. Welcome to Couple of Flicks. I am Tristan.
I am Nick.
And I'm Zach.
So, have either of you seen anything lately?
I haven't, no. I've been busy with WoW.
Excellent.
Unfortunately. Just YouTube videos, and I've been watching Friends on Netflix while playing WoW. So just something in the background while I'm grinding.
I have not.
About it.
I haven't watched Friends for a long time,
Yeah, I never really saw the whole thing through, and it's like the most popular thing on Netflix, so I figured I'd give it a shot. It's all right. I hate almost all of them though, but there's some funny lines and funny shit in there.
The good thing about Friends is it's very watchable.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've watched the whole series and the season finale or the series finale and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I mostly watched it with my sister because she was sort of the one who was a big fan of it. But yeah, so
Yeah.
Have you seen anything lately?
Last two things I watched before the three for this episode was Wreck and Wreck 2.
Yeah, excellent.
First one was good. Second one, not so much.
Yeah, the first one I actually find really scary.
It was done really well for found footage because I don't get into those too much, but that one was really good.
They're hard to get into because like they're so obscure, like they're visually so obscure that it's just sometimes it can. I mean, most found footage films I tend to find like more irritating than enjoyable, mainly because you're not so much of the time the visibility is just so vague, but I felt like with Wreck they actually utilized that element really well, just to made it really claustrophobic. So
yeah.
So
and I would have liked the second one better if they didn't go into the possession, all that shit.
I agreed. The first half of Rec 2 was pretty good, but then once it got into that part, it all sort of fell apart, became really cheesy, but yeah, I and you never saw the remake, right? The Quarantine?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I didn't really like it. It's yeah. Let's see. As far as new things I've watched or things that I've watched for the first time, I watched Lords of Chaos, which is about the uprising of the black metal scene in Norway. Although it only tells like kind of a small part of the story, but it tells kind of the main part, like the most notorious part of it. And it's based on a book also called Lords of Chaos, and it was decent. I'd say if you want to watch a movie that's about black metal, I'd recommend it. It's not super accurate, and it knows that it isn't. I mean, at the very beginning of the movie, it says that it's based on the truth and on lies. So, and but I'd recommend it if you're curious about the idea. But beyond that, I would just stick to the documentaries. So, because that tells a bigger, yeah. And then aside from that, I watched a film that Steven Seagal directed, his only film that he directed, called On Deadly Ground, where he plays this environmentalist in Alaska who is basically duking it out with oil drillers, and it was terrible. I really really don't recommend it at all. It's really badly dubbed and badly made, and he's like trying to protect Alaska, and yet he basically destroys Alaska in the process. Nice. And the whole thing, there's like no irony to it at all. Like,
was it Fat Seagal?
No, it wasn't Fat Seagal. It was like an early Seagal movie, like early 90s. It might have been like 92 or 93, which wouldn't have surprised me if it were 93, because that was a terrible year for action movies, because that was the year that like Sidekicks came out with Chuck Norris, and I think Last Action Hero came out that year too with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
And yeah, I wouldn't recommend On Deadly Ground. And then I watched a movie that it's by one of the directors of Swiss Army Man, which I don't know if either of you've seen that.
Yeah, I liked that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was by one of the directors of that. It's a newer movie. I think it's in theaters right now. And the title, it's kind of an awkward title. It's titled The Death of Dick Long. And I definitely can't spoil what it's about, but I will say that it's definitely one of the funniest movies I've seen this year, and that it's uniquely American. And I'd be curious as to what your thoughts on it would be. So
Yeah.
so
I'll have to check that one out then, I guess.
yeah. I watched it at a friend's house, and we both were just kind of, yeah. I don't know. I'm still kind of haunted by it. So those are the things that I saw recently that I hadn't seen before. And then I rewatched a movie, a really low budget film called Bellflower, which is really good. I like that one. So. Anyway, so let's get started. So let's talk your choice, which was, you can say it if you want.
It was Mac and Me.
Yes.
One of the movie I had as a child on VHS, and I don't remember it being as bad as it was. I quite enjoyed it as a kid, and I didn't right now.
Yeah. No, it was bad.
As for the plot, it's basically E.T., right?
Yep.
Pretty much.
Instead of a single alien, basically, though, it's kind of about the family of them, would you say?
Yeah, pretty much. It's I mean, for those who missed E.T. in the theaters in 1982, and never got around to getting the VHS tape with the weird green part on the back. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever remember, but the VHS tape of E.T. Yeah, and but I just remember, like, because for whatever reason my mom, like, she didn't keep the covers, but she kept the tapes, and that one just always, my OCD, like, I always hated the fact that the back of it was green, and I would always just kind of put it behind another one, just because the green cover, like, always annoyed me.
Nice.
But for those who missed ET, 6 years later, Mac and Me, which is a ET ripoff, essentially came out. So those folks could enjoy that one instead, I suppose.
Yeah.
I had never seen this before.
Neither had I. Yeah.
So.
First time.
What did you guys think?
On an enjoyment level, I liked it, but as far as it being an actual good movie, there was a lot of things that were wrong with it. I thought it was very, very funny.
Yeah.
Like, very, very, very funny.
Not on purpose either.
I don't think so. And a lot of people, like, they talked about the part where the wheelchair scene, it's like, of course there's, the whole movie's a wheelchair scene, but there's one particular wheelchair scene where the kid falls off the cliff or whatever, which everybody's familiar with that clip. But I actually thought the part with the vacuum was even funnier.
Oh yeah, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. It's pretty much like, a group of mysterious alien creatures, the Max.
The Max.
They get abducted by the U.S. government, and eventually they end up fleeing the facility. Although one of them, I guess we'll call him Mac.
Yeah.
Because the kid, the main character kept on calling him Mac, so I guess that's his name. But he stumbles upon this kind of family. I guess I'm not sure where the dad was, but the mom, I don't know, the whole, like, it's like this mom and these two sons, and they're moving into this new house, and there's this neighbor, which it's like this really sketchy girl, and her, I guess it was her older sister or her mom. I mean, she looked kind of young to be her mom, so maybe it was her older sister. I mean, I don't know.
I think it was her older sister.
Yeah, it's a sister.
Okay, yeah, and a friendship a friendship grows out of that, and then hijinks ensue.
Yeah,
with the alien.
I guess.
Yeah, I think. I mean, probably the most notable thing about this movie is all the corporate sponsorship,
Yeah.
which was my favorite part of the movie, I gotta say.
A random McDonald's scene.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
Oh my Jesus.
that McDonald's scene.
That was fucking dumb.
So why did everybody start dancing?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Did the alien like make them start dancing? Because I know that the alien sort of has like magic powers a little bit.
I mean, I looked away for a second, and then I looked back, and they were all dancing at McDonald's, and it's like, wait, what the fuck did I miss? Why are they dancing?
Yeah.
I mean, I asked the same question, what did I miss? And I didn't end up turning away. Like, it just, they all, yeah. And Ronald McDonald made a pretty cool cameo, you
There
know?
he
Which,
was.
I mean, it was that was definitely I don't know what it was, but I laughed really hard. I mean,
Yeah,
there were a lot of parts that where I was actually laughing, and I watched it by myself, which I kind of wished I hadn't. You know, I wished I had watched it with somebody else, but I was laughing like by myself to Mac and me, just kind of like puzzled by the whole thing. You know, but
Yeah.
the Coca-Cola advertisements and the Skittles
Hilarious.
advertisements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were so plentiful. I mean, and I liked how the film, every time, you know, somebody drank a Coke or somebody ate Skittles, the film made sure to make it very, very clear on screen, you know, what it was that they were eating or drinking.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was
Cheers.
the Coca-Cola was the elixir that brought the family back to life when they found them in the cave.
That was so fucking bad. That was like the biggest product placement. Like the elixir of life is Coke. for those
Yeah.
guys. All right.
That was, yeah. I mean, I that was pretty much all the characters in this movie drank.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just interesting to think about these companies that, like, this is their sort of view on American life. This is their ideal, like their idealized view on American life. Just nothing but people eating and drinking their products. And it I don't know, it's just kind of, it was funny, you know. It was a movie about the way corporations wish that life worked, you know. I mean, there were times where I seriously felt like the movie was, you know, kind of trying to brainwash me, because there was just Coke everywhere. They go to a grocery store, there's towers of Coke,
Yeah.
which,
And-
you know, yeah.
Instead of like Reese's Pieces like in E.T., it was Coke. A trail of Coke.
Yeah, trails of Coke, trails of Skittles, you know? And you know, at E.T., I mean, say what you will about it, but at least that film didn't shove Reese's Pieces in your face every two scenes. I mean,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. I don't know.
Also wanted to mention the look of these aliens. It basically looks like a butthole with two bulging eyes.
Yeah, they weren't that good.
yeah, those looked like pretty uncomfortable bodysuits,
Yeah.
you know. But I'm certainly intrigued by like what it must have been like to play these kinds of roles, you know, of these aliens, which were making a lot of strange noises. the noises they made actually kind of remind me of the noises my cat made. You know, there were times when I was watching it where like I'd like turn around and be like, whoa, whoa, you know, just like because yeah, they sounded just like my cat.
And then they at the end they become U.S. citizens somehow.
That
Oh.
was fucking stupid.
Yeah, so
So dumb.
so spoilers.
Oh
Which
yeah, spoilers. I guess.
Actually, I mean it's Mac and Me, so who cares about spoilers for Mac and Me?
yeah.
But like, so yeah, things kind of go haywire at the end there. I mean, so they're on the run from the U.S. government, who chases them down through a mall. I mean, these are fast guys. You know, they can run fast.
That kid can wheelchair fast.
Yeah, that kid had some
He
mad
has
wheelchair
some arms
skills.
on that kid.
He was better than the kid in Silver Bullet. You know, like he was zooming.
Mm-hmm.
And yet somehow these government agents, I mean, they were out for blood. I mean, they chased him down like a cheetah. And you know, at one point they're going through the mall or whatever, and the door closes and some wires go fly. There's electricity and all this stuff, and the doors close, and then they break down the window. Although there was a door right next to them that they could have because I don't think that door was locked. I think it was just that one door but whatever. Anyway, and then the mom kind of became part of this pursuit at one point, but then she wasn't like.
Yeah, she got held back or something.
Yeah, maybe she got distracted or something. and yeah, and I don't know, the film just kind of starts making less and less sense as it goes along, almost like it's just kind of making stuff up as like just random script ideas. So okay, eventually the government catches up with them. There's a showdown, which I'm not really sure why that had to involve gunfire. Like,
Yeah, I don't.
why did everybody just start shooting at each other? Like,
Because it's America.
I guess it was trying to make a statement about like illegal aliens or something. Like, because the alien, so like they wind up in a grocery store, and they're these aliens, like they're pretty shitty, honestly, because they keep stealing soda. Like like at one point one of them reaches through a window
Oh yeah.
and breaks the window and steals this girl's soda.
Yep.
I mean,
Assholes.
it's awful. And so like,
Take them out.
and then they're in a grocery store, and like the guy like actually pulls a gun on this alien, which I didn't feel was warranted because there wasn't really any threat. Like,
Yeah. Just
And then-
wanted some soda.
exactly. And then the alien gets a hold of the gun, which I thought it would have been the funniest thing in the world if that alien accidentally shot and killed somebody, you know, but it didn't happen. But then like the agents show up, the police show up, people start firing, everything starts exploding, and somehow in the middle of it, you know, the wheelchair kid with the heart of gold, who throughout the whole movie has been helping these aliens, gets mowed down.
Yep. He dies.
He's the casualty.
I was thinking like, why didn't they? I was like, oh shit, are they going this route with that? Like that's dark, because it was pretty dark at the time. I was like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Usually I figured they'd like mow down the brother, and then the kid would be crying over the brother
Yeah.
and shit, but they killed the kid. I was like, god damn.
Yeah. Until they brought him back to life.
Yep. I
They-
was expecting them to whip out a bottle of Coke and start pouring it down his throat.
I mean, that would have been the ultimate Coca-Cola advertisement.
Yes.
And so the kid is resurrected, the wheelchair child, Eric, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Eric.
resurrected like Jesus, you know. So
Oh,
it's,
God,
you know,
sure.
it's a spiritual story about aliens. And then they become US citizens, you know. And there's no
Fucking weird.
I mean, it just kind of happens after that.
Yeah.
Like the kid survives after he gets resurrected, and then pretty much the next scene is this gentleman giving them the right to citizenship, and they're dressed in suits, which looked hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fucking funny when they were dressed up.
everybody in this movie sucked at driving.
Mhm.
And so it was kind of tragic to see that at the end of the movie, the last shot was of the aliens driving. And like, I don't know, it just seemed kind of scary to me because it's like they hadn't been around that long. They've never driven a car before. Like, I don't know how good are they honestly behind the wheel, you know? Like,
Right.
I mean, judging by the way everybody else in this movie drives, the mother, the brother, I mean, everybody in this movie drives like a maniac, you know. And as somebody who has a fear of dying in a car wreck, those were probably the scariest scenes for me. You know? Now, okay, at the beginning of the movie when that one alien was escaping, like he's running across the cars, and then there was that one kid in the car with the red hair. Now, I should have looked it up, but was that the kid from Terminator 2?
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
I knew he looked familiar.
Yeah, he looked like the kid from like Salute Your Shorts and Terminator 2, the red-haired kid with the mullet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
that was him.
I meant to look it up, but I didn't, you know, just because I didn't really care. You know,
That scene was hilarious too. When the hole in the fence and he's like stretched back, and then like tumbleweeds across the road.
Yeah, they hit the fence or whatever, and he just goes flying off.
Yeah.
It's hysterical. So sequel.
Yeah. There was a planned sequel, but it did so bad it never happened.
It could still happen though when you think about it. I mean, you know, hear me out. I mean, if this movie, like, because this movie has developed a relatively sizable fan base, I feel like, mainly because of how shitty it is.
Yeah.
And you know, as time is going on, we're seeing you know, older actors being resurrected for newer movies. You know, like we're having actors being de-aged. We're having actors who are dead being put in movies. You know, we just heard this recent news about James Dean.
Oh, yeah.
So who knows? Mac and Me 2 could happen tomorrow.
Oh, I hope not.
I'd still watch it though.
I think I would watch it too.
Let's make a fan film.
Mac and Me.
Start it up. Kickstart it.
A Kickstarter for Mac and Me 2. I wonder. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. So I'm not sure where any of the other actors in this movie are these days, but I mean, I don't know. That this movie, it was definitely a product of its time, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I mean, the music, it's pure 80s, and it's pure America.
Mm-hmm.
I think on a scale of 1 to 5, I'd give it a 2, because honestly, I was fascinated by the corporate sponsorship. I mean, I don't know what it was about it, but I found it really interesting, and yeah, I'd say as a movie that was made from the perspective of people, of corporations who want America to be a very specific way. This is their dream actualized. So.
All right. Well, I went into this with higher expectations, I think, than I got, because I thought it was going to be a little more funnier than I was imagining, because of just, you know, the talk around it and everything. So I was a little disappointed. I was a little bit bored with it for most of it. But the good scenes were like hilarious, of course, but I could feel you could just YouTube those scenes and get all you need to get from this movie. But I will give it a 2 out of 5 just because it gave that running gag of Paul Rudd in Conan just for that. Otherwise, it'd be like a 1.
And what I love about that, every time he plays that clip, he always has the same look on his face, like a dead serious, deadpan look, like, you know, like
Yeah.
it's hysterical.
Yeah.
I gave it a 2.5. I was gonna give it a 3, but I can't.
Yeah.
I think 2.5 is probably the highest.
Only because it made me laugh more than it should have.
Yeah. I think if I were a kid and I watched this and I hadn't seen E.T. yet, I probably would have liked it more. Although having said that, I didn't really like E.T. when I was a kid, so maybe I wouldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, overall, Mac and Me was hysterical. But as far as films go, it is of poor quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you're looking for family miracles and magical alien stuff, it leaves something to be desired, I'd say. So let's see. So the next movie is your choice, right?
Choice.
Do you want to say what that was?
My choice was Basket Case.
Yeah, it's directed by Frank Henenlotter, who's an exploitation film master, and he's also one of the. I think he was one of the. He was involved in the Something Weird distribution company, which mostly puts out like weird, odd, obscure like exploitation films, or at least they used to. I don't know if they still do, but they
Exploitation films.
like they put out like the films of like Herschel Gordon Lewis, for example, and like on DVD, films like that. Anyway,
Yeah, I had no idea. I just picked it based on the name alone. I just scrolled through. Oh, I had no idea. So besides Mac and Me, the other two movies, I had no idea what I was going into, like even what genre they were. I thought Basket Case might be some type of comedy, just because it sounds like, oh, Basket Case, crazy wacky guy or something, shenanigans going down. No, it was like some kind of weird horror thriller, fucking disturbing movie. Like this movie disturbed me, honestly.
it
Like,
was actually really disturbing.
It was really fucking weird, like. And so yeah, I guess
Do you want me to like maybe summarize the plot, or
I can go ahead and try that. So it's basically the main character. He shows up to a hotel, gets a room. He's carrying a basket, and like this is just the first few scenes. I was just like, oh, this is disturbing of how it's just shot. It looked real dingy, like it was just like poorly shot, and like all the characters were kind of grimy and like. It just made me feel uneasy the whole time watching it. And,
Yeah, I felt the same way.
yeah. And
yeah.
do we ever know where he got that money from? Like, I kind of missed that part. I don't like he had a lot of cash.
I mean, my guess is that he might have inherited it from his aunt.
Okay.
That's pretty much my only guess.
So yeah, and so it's about him and his Siamese twin that got separated.
Belial.
Yeah, and
Dwayne and
it
Belial.
was just like a fucking blob creature monster thing. So that's basically what it was. And it's like a horror thriller or whatever. And I was just like going through it because I didn't know what was going on the whole time. I was flipping back and forth whether or not the guy was crazy because the main character just acted off like the entire time. So I wasn't sure if like he was imagining that thing in the basket and he was crazy and doing the killings or whatnot. But nope, the monster thing was real apparently. And it was killing shit.
They do have a psychic connection though.
Yeah,
Like,
they did have a psychic connection.
and that kind of it ends up kind of going in an interesting direction like later on, because at one point there is kind of the question as to whether or not how entwined their identities are, mainly because of that dream sequence at the end.
Oh, the naked one where he was naked.
Yeah. The naked one where he was naked, yeah, in the cold streets of New York.
Right.
So
Yeah, so there is dong in this movie.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely 80s. In both a good way and a bad way.
Yeah. And I just wonder, like, if they needed that basket just for the puppetry. I wonder if they just played her like, how are we gonna puppet this thing normally? Oh, have him carry it in a basket and we'll have the guy underneath.
Yeah, this movie is grimy as hell. It is pure grime. It's grimy in like the same way that like films like Maniac and Nightmare and A Damaged Brain, which both came out in the 80s, are grimy. Just, you know, ugly, smelly looking cityscapes with strippers and hookers and drug addicts and, you know, all that stuff. Like basically just like the most eccentric kind of off the beaten path type of people everywhere. Garbage everywhere, broken glass, all that stuff. I mean, yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah.
Like, I liked he got fucking shit-faced at a bar with that chick from across the hall.
Oh, yeah.
It was like just a drunken exposition. He just like let it all out. Like, oh, yeah. And then it started the flashback of him as a kid and doing the surgery and shit.
Yeah, which
oh man,
was actually pretty sad, honestly. Yeah. Like, I like horror movies that kind of make you sympathize with the monster or with the killer. And I like movies where you pretty much spend all your time with them, like when they're like the main character basically. And and he's like talking to this neighbor of his who, what was with all the smiley faces in her apartment? Like, what was that all about? I guess she just likes smiley faces.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But she was probably my favorite character, just because she was pretty funny, you know. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, he's carrying his Siamese brother around, and at first you're not really quite sure why, but you pretty much it doesn't take long to realize he's pretty much carrying him around for the sole purpose of getting revenge on the people who separated them.
Yeah, a revenge movie.
Yeah, and while they're doing that, Dwayne, who is at least attempting to have a normal life, which is impossible since he has this deformed twin brother who he has to take care of, who's violent and kills people. Like shreds them. Yeah. Pretty much. He does try to go out on a date with mixed results. There's chemistry there, but it just doesn't end up ultimately panning out, mainly because his brother and he are just they're too codependent. And I don't know, it's actually kind of a sad movie. Like the direction it ends up ultimately going in, it ends up being kind of a tragedy.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it was fucking weird. I mean,
yeah. It's bleak, you know.
Definitely, yeah.
Having said that, I actually did kind of find it pretty funny, though.
Yeah, I did too. Like the fucking puppetry and all the stop motion.
The puppetry, the stop motion, which wasn't super great, but I still enjoyed it. You know, I always applaud them for going in that direction and trying it out. I like the creative aspect of it, and I also kind of like that there's sort of a cartoonish feel to it too. Yeah. Like the way people die in this movie, it's very bloody and over the top, and quite exaggerated too. Like limbs and blood everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Like that one nurse lady that got her face shoved into some knives and it just showed her for like 30 seconds screaming with knives, and then she just kind of slowly dropped out of the frame. Like she didn't fall over dead or anything, she just kind of dropped off the frame.
That was the best part of the movie for me, that one shot, you know. And she, out of all the characters, she was probably the most evil out of all the people they were taking revenge on. I just got that impression. Because she was kind of like, because at one point, I mean, the doctors who they're hunting down, so to speak, one of them does kind of catch on to the fact that, oh crap, like this is sort of a figure from the past coming back, and he calls her and she says, just deny everything. She's kind of like the puppet master behind it, And so then when they finally reach her, it's like the final destination. It's pretty much the last person. And but then after that, so do you want to talk about the ending?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ending is it's probably the most tragic part of the whole film, which is saying a lot considering that it's a movie about Siamese twins who are separated and one of them gets thrown into a dumpster or a garbage bag, as if he's not even human, basically. Like they just treat him like he's not human, which I guess he is. I guess he's a monster, but that's only because he was made that way ultimately. But at the end of the movie, like he ends up hunting down Dwayne's girlfriend and fondling her and killing her.
Yeah, that was during this naked scene.
Yeah,
He saw her and he like saw through his eyes of that shit of him the monster doing that.
Yeah,
that was weird.
It was, and then essentially they end up. It ends up basically turning into a suicide pact. Like they both, the movie ends with them dying.
Yeah. That last fight scene was hilarious.
Yeah.
That thing grabbed him by the balls.
That was great.
Just lifted him up by the balls.
Yeah. I loved that.
That was so fucking funny.
But they did make sequels.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah.
No.
And after I watched Basket Case, because it turns out I had Basket Case and I had the sequels as well, which I totally forgot that I had. And so I watched both of those as well. And in my opinion, they're not as good as the first one. So if you didn't like the first one, I wouldn't recommend the sequels. The sequels have better special effects, and like you could tell they had a little bit more to work with, but I kind of feel like that sort of took away from them a little bit, because like I thought what worked about the first film was its sort of cheap, weird quality, and the sequels, I don't know, like they definitely are weird, but they don't have the same quality as the first one, in my opinion. So I wouldn't really recommend the sequels unless you want more of what the first one was, basically. And I don't think that would be everybody, but I don't know. I was curious, so I watched them. So.
I'll check them out eventually.
Yeah. They might. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Basket Case. I mean, it's one of those sort of low budget films that I felt had a vision behind it. It was an ugly vision. Probably not the kind of vision that most people would be able to get behind, but for people who like their horror movies to be, real grungy and dingy and ugly, Basket Case is definitely satisfying in that sense. Yeah. And there are times where I'm totally on board for a movie like that, which is just about the worst aspects of human nature. I don't know, if you're into ugly stuff, Basket Case, I'd recommend it. I'd give it probably 3 out of 5.
Well, I mean, I'd give it like a 2.5, I think. Being generous. That's some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just weird, disturbing, gross.
Very, very gross.
I also gave it a 2.5. I also thought the pacing of it was weird. I don't know if it was just the editing or what, but that's one thing I wrote.
Either for sure, yeah. There was a lot of weird transition shots. I noticed.
It was kind of awkwardly edited. I kind of like that aspect of it. That's something that the sequels, aren't as awkwardly edited. So if that was something that bothered you about the first one, the sequels might actually kind of click with you more, because I can see how, like, if one were watching a film like that and had kind of an unusual editing style, or the scenes kind of felt like they were ending prematurely and stuff like that, that it could be, distracting. And I'm the kind of I've seen so many bad horror movies that sort of the kind of cheaper, crappier aspects of this film don't really bother me as much. So that hotel manager, by the way, he was like, I feel like I've seen him in something before, but I don't know. I looked up the actor. I don't know. None of it. But yeah. I don't know. Did he seem familiar to you guys? Like,
he did to me. Yeah.
Nah, not me.
He kind of looked like a fatter Gallagher in a way.
Frank Henenlotter, I'd say, because I've seen all of his movies, I don't like this one as much as Brain Damage, which came out a few years later. And I'd say I'd recommend Brain Damage more over this one. And not to get into the plot of Brain Damage, but it sort of has a similar kind of atmosphere, and it also sort of follows a kind of a social outcast, like an awkward social outcast. So I feel like Frank Henenlotter sort of identifies with oddball characters. So, but yeah, so, and he also did, he did Frankenhooker as well. I mentioned that last time. I was trying to remember, but anyway. So, yeah, overall, I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So then the last film was Miracle Mile, which when I chose this one, I think I chose it sort of remembering that it was more of a B movie, so to speak, than it actually kind of ended up being. But basically, so Miracle Mile, it was made, I think it was made the same year as Mac and Me, actually, in 1988. Yeah. So it tells the story of this gentleman, Harry, who meets this girl, I think Julie is her name. Anyway,
I forget.
I'm not remembering. But they meet cute, so to speak.
I hated it. I hated the whole intro thing. It was so cheesy.
It was a very familiar intro.
His voiceover when he was talking about it. It made it like the first, because again, this is a movie I had no idea what it was about. So I was going into it thinking, is this like some kind of dramatic, I don't know, romance movie or something?
It kind of starts off like that. Yeah.
His voiceover was like so deep and poignant, and like he said some like
talking about the mysteries of love and all that stuff.
And it was just, and his voiceover was so flat too. I was like, this fucker, he can't even voice over. This is not gonna go well.
Yeah. Although Anthony Edwards, definitely, in my opinion anyway, one of the better actors that's worked in TV. But I will say, the voiceover. It didn't. I don't know. I don't even remember the voiceover actually, to be honest.
It was just like in the first scene, setting it up. It was just like, they're going for some artsy shit, because that's what just like the writing sounded like, and it was not hitting. Yeah,
but they meet cute at a museum. They hit it off. Their chemistry is perfect. Honestly, they couldn't be a better couple. So they set up a date. But unfortunately, through a series of unfortunate circumstances, the gentleman doesn't end up making it. He ends up inadvertently standing her up. So he goes to her place of work, and then a payphone, which is a relic from the past, a payphone rings, and he picks it up, and the person on the line tells him that a nuclear payload is going to be dropped on the city in an hour. And the rest of it pretty much unfolds in real time.
Yeah. That is one thing I do like about it, is that it unfolded in real time. I do wish more movies did like real time type movies.
Agreed. That's something I liked about that series. 24.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this movie, I mean, holy crap. Like, I gotta say, like, you the whole time, I mean, it's interesting because there's kind of two sort of suspenseful aspects of it. There's the aspect of him getting back together with his girl, trying to track her down, trying to kind of sort of through like kind of figure out or get focused and get to where she lives and retrieve her to escape the city, if they even have enough time to do that. But then there's also the suspense of what could actually happen in an hour, because there's sort of the possibility that it could be a hoax still.
Yeah, that was one of the things everyone like that bothered me in the beginning was just a hoax. Like, I saw this as like everybody except the main character was somewhat intelligent of doing the right thing, except for like them all freaking the fuck out over just some phone call. Like when he got it and was telling everyone, I thought like the most level-headed person was that Roger chick. Like she was like, whatever. It's 4 a.m. Some drunk asshole probably just called you.
Yeah.
And like she just ignored it, dismissed it, and then like that fucking the cook, he just like got up, fucking pointed a gun at his head, and I was like, oh man, this is escalating real quick off a possible prank phone call.
Yeah.
Like, fucking shot the gun, pointed it at his head. I was like, okay then.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna go crazy over this.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, in the 80s, people really were afraid of a bomb like that, like of nuclear war, which, I mean, as time has gone on, nuclear war has kind of changed, and it's not really the same thing as it once was.
Yeah, I get that, but the thing is, they were just going off a phone call of this one random
which
I had at 4 a.m. You're like, okay.
and it could be a hoax, and it's like, if he's right, everybody's gonna die, but if he's wrong, then he basically is responsible for a full-scale riot that ends up ensuing. I mean, it just, I think watching this it gave me a very fascinating perspective on sort of that fear of nuclear oblivion, and what that fear really meant to people. Because I mean, if I were in a situation like that where I didn't really know for sure, I don't really know what I would do. And I think this character, who's at his core, he's a romantic, so naturally he's gonna seek out the girl and try to find her, rather than trying to save his own life, which, I mean, I suppose is valiant in a way, although it's certainly not what I would do.
Again, it was the thing that's what I mean. Like, he was the only one in like the whole movie making stupid decisions. Like, when they were leaving the bar, or I mean the diner, they were all packing up and getting the fuck out of there, and like the cook, he said, yeah, I'll take you, but he lied. Of course, he was just going to the hotel, which is the smart move. He's like, just shut up and get in. Let's get the hell out of here. Again, smart move. I would have said, if I was the cook, I would have been like, no, we're not going there. Get yourself there, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he like didn't stop to let him out or anything. And like the other guy that he stole the car from, right, to get to his girlfriend's place, he was taking too long to get his girlfriend out, so he just booked it, which was, and again, another smart move by that guy. And there's just smart moves made by everybody except the main character, I feel. Although
I did feel like the car thief, or not the car thief, but the guy who had all that, thief, that whole incident that occurred at the gas station, which,
oh my god,
that was pretty disastrous.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was hilarious. And that pretty much came from everybody deciding to panic. All at once. The guy in the gas station was panicking because he had an unregistered weapon. The guy with the stereo was panicking because he had stolen equipment. The Anthony Edwards character had a gun, and I mean it just, and then eventually he steals a police car.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, as it went along, I mean, because then he eventually tries to find a helicopter. He tries to find somebody who can actually fly a
Oh
helicopter.
my
I
god,
should
that
say.
was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was so you're running down the street. Can anyone fly a helicopter? He was just running down the street, asking, yelling.
Yeah.
He just ran into a gym,
Yeah.
asking, holding a gun. He didn't he shoot the gun in the gym?
Yeah, he shot the stereo
Yeah.
that they were all
anyone-
working out and jazzercising.
Can anyone fly a helicopter?
And what's remarkable is he actually does find somebody who can fly a helicopter.
Right? I was like,
It's like,
I was like, shut the
wow.
fuck up! Stop doing this. You're just looking in the wrong spot. Like,
Yeah.
so somewhere at least a little bit more, I don't know, airport adjacent maybe. I don't know how close he was, but like, you ran into a goddamn gym asking everybody in there if they can fly a helicopter, which isn't that common. Like,
Yeah.
and I was, because I remember I did recognize that guy that could fly the helicopter.
Oh yeah.
He was only in a couple episodes of Buffy.
Yeah.
As a vampire for a few episodes.
I remember him in
'Cause
that.
he had a unique facial structure that worked really well with the prosthetics they used in that show.
Yeah. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He was in the sequel to Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat
Oh, yeah.
Annihilation. He played Shao Kahn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So, oh, by the way, do you have any thoughts? I notice you haven't said much yet.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much have the same thoughts. Sorry. I mean, you guys talk more than I do, so I'll let you
okay.
go.
Well, I mean, if you have anything you want to say, feel free to chime in. But
Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
till the end, really.
okay. Well, the ending, in my opinion, was probably the best part of the movie. In my opinion, like I felt like the build up to the final 20 minutes or so. I mean, really, the final 20 minutes of this film, I think, say probably the most.
Well, I want to backtrack a little
Oh.
before we get to the ending.
Yeah.
Like, who was this lady with the fucking suitcase phone?
Yeah, that's one of my questions.
Like, who the hell was she? She knew tons of shit. Like, because she had a boyfriend that was in the feds or something, an ex.
She was somebody who happened to know the right information.
Right, and then
Ultimately.
I found the fucking funniest thing was, like, okay, so she knows shit, and then she asks that street cleaner guy and the waitress, get me a list of the most important people you can think of. Okay, you're asking a street cleaner and a waitress.
Yeah.
Like, give me scientists, leaders. I thought it was funny. It wasn't. They could have had better names or something, because I had no idea who any of them they were blurting out. But like, I felt like
Harry Bellatone or somebody like.
So it was a
That
little
was like
out
the
of
most
loop on
random.
that, but, like, it was. They could have had a little funny.
Yeah.
And it probably was for people back then, maybe. But I didn't get it. But I did know that street cleaner too. He was in Shameless.
Hmm.
If you're familiar with that, he's
Yeah.
really good in Shameless. He's a professor in that.
Some of the actors and actresses looked familiar. That waitress, she was in Natural Born Killers, wasn't she? Like,
I think so.
like she was, yeah. I think I saw her in something else too, like some stupid like kids movie or something. But yeah, I mean, it was unusual because all these characters were sort of panicking in unusual ways, which, on one hand, it's like this is ridiculous, but then on the other hand, I can't really say for sure what I would do, so it's hard for me to really judge, but I still did. It was still pretty unusual.
Yeah, one motif I did notice too was like when he did jump out of the fucking van and broke his glasses, he became a badass.
Yeah.
Like instead of being like this meek nerd trumpet
Yeah.
player, he became a badass once he lost his glasses.
Yeah, and that's when he took charge of the situation. It was like,
Right.
all right, now I really got to get to her.
Glasses are broken. Shit's
Yeah.
getting real.
Yeah. And actually, that old couple, at one point, there's an old couple.
Oh yeah, it was
Who-
the parents of his girlfriend.
That's
yeah.
it. That was kind of a better love story.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the midst of this core love story, which I I admittedly was charmed by, but I think that's mainly because I'm a sucker for romantic movies. I mean, I like Love Actually, so, but
It made no sense to me.
yeah,
That
but
those kids.
but the old couple, they decide they're gonna spend their last moments together, and
After 15 years of not talking to each other.
yeah, and I don't know, that was something I found quite beautiful.
No, it was nice. They were like, yeah, we're not gonna try and live. We've lived.
Yeah,
We'll just watch the sunset.
yeah, we've lived long enough. Now we'll watch the nuclear sunset, if it happens. Which, so, yeah, the ending. Here we go. So eventually, spoilers, I guess. So yeah, eventually there is a citywide riot. It's a pretty nasty one too, actually.
And it happens like in a split second too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just walked out a door and everything was
Yeah.
fucking fire.
And that was the moment. That was the moment when I kind of realized that this movie was a satire. Like, that this film wasn't really intended to be taken literally, but really was intended to be more something a little bit bigger, I guess, which I kind of admired it, actually. And I didn't really remember it that well. The main reason I chose this one is because I wanted to watch it again, because I couldn't really, there were too many aspects of it I couldn't remember. And so at the end, when the riot is happening, there was some pretty amazing filmmaking going on. The whole chase through the sewer, like, that reminded me kind of Children of Men a little bit, like the ending sequences of that. Like, I kind of feel like, I don't know, I felt like Children of Men might have been inspired a little bit by that, just by the way that whole scene unfolded, and just how he was just getting chased by that one guy and yeah, I mean, it was just like everything was just going off the rails, and like he's looking at the TV and people are getting slaughtered. There's blood in the streets. There's cars, being turned over, fire, explosions everywhere. And it's all his fault, basically.
Pretty much.
Yep.
But he does eventually reconnect with her.
Because she was out looking for helicopters too, or a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
He just heard some girls screaming in the streets. Can anyone find or fly a helicopter?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, my girlfriend. That must be her.
And he was lucky to find her again.
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap! Like, so throughout the whole movie, it's like, it's kind of a miracle that he manages to not only find her the first time, but the second time too. Like, so it's almost like their love is meant to be, But then, they're in the elevator, and then the lights go out and the power surges, which pretty much confirms that that it's really happening, and that they're about to die. So then it's only a matter of time before they get to the helipad, and they get there and they take off, and as they're taking off, yeah, it ends up happening. So
yeah, it actually was real the whole time. I mean, I don't know. I think I would have kind of liked it better if it didn't happen. Like, if the chaos just ensued, and then, I don't know, maybe cut a little bit of the chasing and all that shit, and then go into maybe like a 10-15 minutes of the aftermath of, oh, nothing happened, but this entire city is up in flames because of fucking fake nuclear, shit. I think that would have been more interesting.
Yeah.
Everyone just, it actually nuking everyone in the end.
Well, yeah, I mean, I admit that would have been a pretty interesting direction for the film to go in. But I gotta say, like, the final minute of this movie actually made me cry, because they were so close. I mean, they actually, like, they found each other twice. They were going, they were doing the best that they absolutely could, even though they kept on making. They fucked up left and right, but they were doing the best they could to try to survive. And they didn't make it ultimately. But in a way, it also ends in probably the most romantic way that it could, because they get turned into diamonds.
Yeah. I didn't feel that way. Like, I cry during movies all the fucking time, and I just didn't care because they had like one date, as far as I can tell. They met maybe, I don't know, like, was it just one date?
Yeah, pretty much
like,
just one date.
It's just like, I love you. And like, they were like thrown out. I mean, sure, end of the world stuff, people will say that shit and whatever, but it was one date. I wasn't like, I didn't think that was real, or okay, it's just the end of the world shit they're saying, and they died.
Yeah, you didn't get to spend enough time with her character either.
Yeah, so that, to me, that relationship wasn't that believable. It was like, okay, he likes this chick, sure, he's gonna try and save her, but like, the I love you, blah blah blah, oh, it was meant to be. You don't know. This was the first day you met. Maybe she's an annoying bitch. You don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess it wasn't believable, but I don't know. There were so many aspects of this movie that weren't really believable, so I wasn't really.
I mean,
yeah. To me, I felt like it was the atmosphere of it was so heightened and absurd at times. Almost comic book like. The colors were very saturated. I mean, maybe it's just because that was the 80s. Who knows? But I would say, yeah, this film was dated ultimately. But I don't know. I'm the kind of person who thinks that if a film is dated, in a way, that's actually a good thing, because if a film is dated, it essentially means that it can function almost like a peek into another time period. Because usually when a film is dated, it means that there are aspects of it that don't really work in a contemporary kind of way. And there are a lot of things about this movie that don't really work in a contemporary way. Like the very idea of nuclear war or a nuclear bomb just doesn't really have much. It doesn't have. It's not that it doesn't have any relevance anymore. It just doesn't have the same kind of relevance that it did in the 80s. Like today, if there were the possibility of a nuclear bomb hitting us, I don't necessarily know that things would erupt in the same way that they did, or at least that people would panic so much. I mean, personally, if I heard that a bomb was about to drop, I would drive toward the bomb, because surviving a nuclear bomb, in my opinion, is the absolute last thing I would want to do. So if I were him, I would actually go home and go back to bed, just like the guy on the phone requested that he did.
Oh yeah.
So, but that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Overall, I really liked it. I'd give it 4 out of 5 personally. So, for just mainly because I like the perspective of it. I like the idea of it, and I wasn't bored by it. So.
Yeah, I wasn't bored by it either. I mean, I didn't like a lot of the acting. I don't know. It might just be a thing of the 80s acting. One thing I have a problem with, just going back and seeing the acting of the different generations, it's always kind of off to me.
Yeah.
And I just think the plot was a little too wacky. Like, they were all just basing it off some guy who could have even not even taken a phone call, or even though it ended up happening, sure.
Yeah.
But again, that's something that I thought was not, that took away from it. It actually did happen.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any like crazy twists or like, oh shit. It was just more straightforward, him doing like the hero's, journey shit. And I think it had a nugget of a good idea in there. And that's why, like, I actually have an idea for gave me ideas for something I'd like to try and make out. But like, so for that, I will give it like 3 stars probably then.
Cool.
I also give it a 3. I enjoyed it, but like, I don't know. It seemed like it was missing something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if this film were like if they were a remake of this film, I think it would be smart. Which everything's getting remade these days, and who knows, maybe one day this film will get remade. But if it did get remade, I think that they should keep the setting in the 80s, and they should take a different approach with it. Just make it different from this. Don't make the same movie, but make it different in some way. Like maybe have it be a hoax, or just have something different about it. As long as they keep the real time aspect of it, because I think that was probably the most interesting aspect of it was the real time feel. Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really glad I watched it again. So.
Was it ever said what happened to the people in the van?
No.
That was one of the questions I had.
Yeah, me too. Like they disappeared.
Yeah. Like she seemed like she knows what she was doing, but
yeah, and then,
never ended up at the helicopter
helicopter
or something.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I also thought was fucking stupid too. Those two guys were like loading up the helicopter, and then some guy just fucking pops up there with a gun, yelling, telling them shit, like asking for people. Like, first off, this is just some random dude, and those guys are like just going along with some crazy fucker popping in at the end of the world. Like, if I was those dudes, I would be a little more like, hey, who are you? What are you doing here? Calm down. Put the gun away. Instead, they're just going with it like they already knew who he was.
Yeah.
Which they didn't, because he had to explain, I was the one that took the call and told that lady.
Yeah.
So, they clearly didn't know who he was, but he just popped up there.
Yeah.
When it was clearly like a secret operative, like they were making calls, something like he just popped up there. And they accepted it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Miracle Mile, So overall, definitely an 80s movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that for sure.
So I think the theme for the next time will be 80s movies as well, right?
Yeah.
All right. So do you guys know what your choices are, like, for next time, or have you thought about it yet?
I got a pick, yeah. Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
All right.
Have you heard of it?
Is that Andy Sedaris?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No idea what it is.
Yeah, I love Hard Ticket to Hawaii. I'm stoked. I can't wait to watch it again.
Never seen it, never heard of it. Don't know what it is.
Oh man. Ooh. My choice, I don't know. I still kind of I can't decide. I'm kind of going back and forth between two different films, and I'm not really sure which one I'll choose. But I think I'm gonna go with Things from 1989. I don't know anything about it. I know that it has that has a cult following. I knew a guy in Kansas who told me that it was his favorite movie of all time. I know that it's a horror movie. That's pretty much all I know about it. So, but I'm gonna go with one I haven't seen and that I don't know anything about. It's called Things, and it's from 1989.
All right. My pick, something I wanted to rewatch because I don't really remember it too much. Surf Nazis Must Die.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Some good old trauma.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. We should. Yeah. Once we start getting more and more into the trauma, that'll be interesting to talk about, because they've made some classics for sure.
Oh yeah. And then are we doing the fourth one?
Yeah. So
Thanksgiving, if you guys want to do that.
Yeah, let's do Thanksgiving as well. Sure.
Yeah.
Since it's going to be Thanksgiving weekend, or the weekend after, or the weekend, something like that. Or it'll be around Thanksgiving, so we may as well watch Thanksgiving. So.
Yeah. Not really a whole lot to make a whole episode out of Thanksgiving, but I thought that's a good one to watch.
Yeah. Toss that one on top of the pile. So. Excellent. All right, cool. Okay. Well, that is it for today. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And peace.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of want to watch Mac and Me again. I gotta.
I'm done.
I mean, probably not for a while, but
Yeah.
I think Mac and Me though I can picture like if I were with some friends and we were drunk, like that movie would be a fucking blast.
Yeah.
So
That's about the only
yeah.
Shout Factory just put it out on Blu-ray, so I'll probably
nice.
pick that up at some time.
There's a Blu-ray.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Nothing like watching Mac and Me on high definition.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Hard Ticket to Hawaii is available on Blu-ray as well. So
Yeah, they just released like all of Andy Sedaris' movies
that's so
on
fun.
Blu-ray.
I don't even know who Andy Sedaris is.
He made some movies that they used to play some of his films on Cinemax actually. And yeah, his movies are known for having a lot of women who have mullets and large breasts. So and Hard Ticket to Hawaii is all about the blonde mullets and all about the large breasts.
Nice.
So, yeah. Anyway,